Hello, everybody, and happy Friday the 13th. Oh, yeah, once again, another Friday the 13th, and this year, 2019, this is the first one of the year, all the way in September. How about that? But I'm glad to be back, and today we're going all the way back to the very first Friday the 13th in 1980. Yes, this marks the milestone 39th anniversary of the classic film franchise. One of my favorites, but you guys should know that already. So today we are drawing young Jason, that is the Crystal Lake Jason, the one that leaps out of the lake at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert for a 39-year-old movie. And of course, the very first killer in the Friday the 13th franchise. That's right, Mrs. Voorhees, played of course by Betsy Palmer. Great flick. A lot of people don't like this movie. It's a little boring. It is kind of the start of the franchise, so a lot of the tropes and stuff that you see in the later entries aren't necessarily represented well here. Still a movie I like. It definitely gives me that, summer camp feel to it really well. A lot of the other movies don't necessarily do that quite so well, but this movie knocks it out of the park. Of course, at the end of the movie, it is revealed that the killer is, in fact, Mrs. Voorhees, a friend of the Christies, who shows up out of nowhere, left field. First time you see her in the movie is right at the end as she shows up, and you think she's really nice, but turns out no, she's nuts, and she's the killer, as the camp counselors who were there let her son drown back in 1958, and she's gone kind of nuts since then, killing camp counselors or whatever. Kind of a good twist, especially if you go into this movie thinking, oh, it's gonna be Jason. You know, the Friday the 13th movies are about Jason. Well, and then, suddenly, if you've never seen the franchise before, start at the beginning, and then boom, it's Mrs. Voorhees. Kind of a surprise there. It's kind of odd too, because it's not like she's a part of the movie up until that point. It's not like she's one of the counselors who's real nice, and oh no, who's the killer? Oh, it turns out it's her. It could be anybody by the end. Like, if you're gonna have a random person show up, like, why not have it be like, oh, I'm Chuck the maintenance guy, or like some random bumpkin from town? I don't know. I digress. At the end of the movie, of course, after Mrs. Voorhees is defeated by the age-old decapitation, Survivor Alice is on a boat when young Jason leaps out of the water in a terrific fright scene. He's all gnarly, covered in like sludge and all banged up and gross looking, and comes out of the water and grabs her. But it was all a dream. Still a great scare though, so I thought it would be nice to kind of do a little mother and son drawing here with Mrs. Voorhees and Lake Jason. So as you can see, I kind of penciled in roughly the figures there. I kind of left the faces a little bit blank, as it were, just like more placeholders until I get all this stuff done. And when you're dealing with light colors like flesh tone, you always want to make sure you get the pencil lines erased. Now with young Jason there, being that he's so like filthy and dirty and again covered in lake sludge and Crystal Lake muck and whatever, I kind of left a pencil in there. It blended a lot with the marker ink and made that kind of sludgy, dirty look. I thought that worked pretty well for the drawing, at least. In terms of Mrs. Voorhees, I definitely went in with a blue for her sweater. That was the number one thing for me, is to get that big giant block of color added in. And then I went in and refined the face a little bit more. Looking at Betsy Palmer's face, she definitely has a look, especially at the end of Friday the 13th when she's running around going, kill her, mommy, kill her, mommy. Great stuff, but she definitely has a look, which I tried to get here as best as I could. A little tough. She's definitely got some striking features. And if you've never seen her in other stuff, Betsy Palmer is actually a really good actress. I know that originally she was not pleased to be a part of the Friday the 13th franchise. She felt it was kind of like this exploitative teen flick, which at the end of the day, it kind of is. And, she was used to getting bigger, better roles. But, I'm glad that she did it at the end of the day. And I believe she came around too on it later in her life and was like, you know what, it's fun. And I think the fan base helps that, These movies, for all that they can be exploitative trash, essentially, let's call a duck here. But at the end of the day, the fans love these movies. I know I do. I know I'm not the only one. And to be an actress, to, go into a movie like this and think, oh, it's just a bunch of garbage. And then, have all these people come out and say like, wow, this movie, it's so good. It means something to me. It does something for me. That's got to feel good. And plus, I got to mention it too. Horror and sci-fi movies and all that kind of stuff. They have, I think, a longer shelf life in terms of fan base than even a lot of just straight up drama movies, quote unquote Oscar winners, or quote unquote good movies. I'm air quoting super hard when I say good movies. People just don't remember them. But Friday the 13th, you better believe that this is a movie that people remember. All right, so we're finishing up here. I got most of the tones in for the skin, put in that kind of knife there. Let's get out the inks. I'm using a new kind of ink this time, rather than my Higgins Black Magic. So this ink that I am using today, I believe, is a Winsor & Newton, and I like it a lot. I'm also using a new brush. I got another Kolinsky Sable brush to try out, this time from Jerry's Artorama in Raleigh, North Carolina, over the summer. So it's working out pretty good so far, so that's pretty sweet. I wanted to start over on the left-hand side of the drawing so I don't smear the ink. This ink, I feel, as opposed to the Black Magic, tends to stay wet just a little bit longer, so I don't want to smear it. Being that I'm right-handed, I'm going to start on the left-hand side there, kind of get in all her, the wrinkles in her sweater and whatnot, and then move up to her face there. Once again, getting Betsy Palmer's face was a little problematic for me, but I think I did my best. Hair too, especially her like golden hair and that kind of cut where it's piled up. Very, very late 70s looking haircut, which I love. I love the, I don't know, I love the 70s, 80s feeling of this movie. But yeah, getting that in with all the light and stuff is tricky but fun. Best technique I could describe is just like start throwing ink down and leaving sections open. See what works, practice up, and go from there. But I had fun doing it, which is pretty sweet. And then again, that Betsy Palmer was a little bit of an older lady at that point in her life. I think she was in her 50s, I want to say, when she played Mrs. Voorhees. Not that that's old, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to say that, but there's something about the face that you have to have a balancing act with a woman's face where what sort of lines do you put in with it? If you leave it too smooth, it's going to look like she's, 20 years old. You put in even one line too many, it's going to make it look like she's in her 70s, and we don't want that. So it's, again, a tough balancing act to figure out just how to make her the proper age. So just some lines around the edge of the lips there, and then just a little bit of just the start of some lines near the underside of the eyes. I think she still looks really good, but you could tell that she's not, like 20 years old, which is what I was going for. With young Jason here, this was a lot of fun. It's basically like drawing a zombie. You could just go absolutely bananas with it and add in all kind of weird lines and dots and pieces of texture and, hanging threads and stuff like that. It'd be really hard to screw it up, as it were. You just start adding stuff to them, various lines and gross little bits and junk like that, and it kind of all works out in the end. So yeah, drawing zombies, again, super fun. Love that stuff. If you're just getting into horror drawing, starting with zombies is a lot of fun. It gives you a lot of freedom, so that's pretty sweet. All right, we're continuing on with that other hand here, and just the kind of outline of the texture and the patterning on the sweater here. Once we go from there, I'm going to go in with the multi-liner to kind of add in the teeth, the pupils, and the eyes here, and the irises as well, and just some other little real fine line details. We're going to take some cool grays, and then we're going to kind of add in the areas that I want to be more in shadow around there. And again, this ink takes a while to dry, so for some of these times that I went in with the markers, it got a little too smeary, even for my taste. But you know what, at the end of the day, I think this drawing turned out really good. I had a blast doing it. Add in those trees then, and then we are rapidly approaching the end game. We're in the end game now, guys. So let's get it signed up. Add in some stars there just at the beginning of that sunset in the background. Let's take a look at the scan. All right, very, very cool. Yeah, I went for a sunset background. I don't know, something about that gives me a summertime vibe. But yeah, I dig it. Like I said before, I had a lot of fun drawing zombie child Jason. Got to mention that he was played by Ari Lehman. I sorry about the pronunciation, who also fronts a metal band called First Jason. Pretty cool stuff, and I met him once at a convention years ago, just very briefly, but a heck of a nice guy. So yeah. Well, that's it for today, campers. I hope you all have a great Friday the 13th. I know I will. This is one of the best holidays of the year. It's in the hierarchy of holidays, I gotta say it's right before Arbor Day for me, so that's pretty high on the list. You guys have a great day. Stay out of the woods, stay out of Jason's lake, and have a good one. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her. Don't let her get away, Mommy. Don't let her live. I won't, Jason. I won't.